There are moments in life when the simplest things begin to whisper. A cup of warm water, the golden gleam of honey resting at the bottom of a spoon, the pale light of a lemon sliced open, releasing a fragrance that feels ancient. It is in these moments that the universe speaks in silence, and those who listen heal. For centuries, this simple blend, honey and lemon, has lived quietly among us. It has passed from grandmother to child, from monk to pilgrim, from healer to soul seeker. It was never sold as medicine. It was given as wisdom. But in the rush of modern life, in the noise of pills and promises, we forgot what the ancients already knew, that true healing doesn't come from what we take, but from how we receive it. The story begins with curiosity, the kind that awakens when the body grows tired and the soul grows restless, when you look at yourself in the mirror and realize that your strength, your energy, your radiance are not gone, only asleep. There is a quiet intelligence in the body, a memory written into every cell. It remembers sunlight. It remembers sweetness. It remembers the days when you rose with energy that felt infinite. And when honey and lemon meet, when warmth joins with purity, something ancient begins to stir again. In the forgotten temples of the East, the monks used to prepare a morning ritual known as the blend of renewal. It was simple: a drop of honey, a squeeze of lemon, a breath of gratitude. They believed that in this blend, the sun and the earth met in harmony. Honey carried the light of flowers, the essence of 1,000 blossoms gathered by patient wings. Lemon carried the cleansing breath of life itself, the subtle acid that dissolves stagnation, that clears, that awakens. And when the two were united in water, the body received not just nourishment, but memory. It remembered how to heal. Modern science calls it alkalinity. They speak of antioxidants, enzymes, and vitamin C, but the monks never used such words. They spoke of balance. They said that honey was the sweetness of life and lemon was the discipline of the spirit. Together they restored harmony, like the sun and the moon sharing the same horizon at dawn. Imagine it: the morning light entering your room, touching the glass on your table. The honey glistens as you stir it slowly, watching it dissolve in warm water like golden threads weaving through the world. Then comes the lemon, sharp, alive, cutting through the sweetness like truth itself. You bring it to your lips, and the taste is both new and familiar, as if your soul recognizes it before your body does. You close your eyes, and for a moment you are still. You remember that healing was never something you had to search for. It was always here, waiting for you to remember. There is something almost sacred about this simplicity. The elders knew it. The mystics wrote of it in hidden scrolls. They believed honey was a symbol of divine nourishment, the essence of creation's generosity. Bees were seen as celestial messengers, gathering the blessings of the sun and offering them to the earth. Lemon, meanwhile, was known as the fruit of purification. In the ancient Hebrew texts, the lemon tree was said to grow near sacred waters, a guardian of clarity and renewal. Together, these two elements were seen as twin forces of creation: sweetness and cleansing, love and truth, mercy and awakening. But what if this blend does more than nourish the body? What if, on some level, it speaks directly to your cells, reminding them of the song they once sang when you were young, strong, and filled with light? Science has only begun to touch the edges of this mystery. They now know that honey carries living enzymes that respond to temperature, vibration, even words, and that lemon's frequency, yes, frequency, vibrates near the energy field of living cells, restoring electrical harmony. What they cannot yet explain is why people who drink it with gratitude, who hold the intention of healing while they sip, often experience not just physical renewal but emotional release. Could it be that intention changes chemistry? Could the way you stir the water, the thoughts you hold as the honey swirls and the lemon brightens, alter the very structure of what enters your body? Ancient wisdom says yes. The Japanese scientist Masaru Emoto once photographed water crystals exposed to words like love and gratitude. The results were astonishing, symmetrical, luminous, alive. When exposed to anger or fear, the crystals lost their form, became chaotic, disordered. What then happens when we prepare this ancient drink with reverence, when we whisper gratitude into it, when we breathe calm into the glass? The answer is felt, not seen. You drink it, and something inside begins to remember peace. In the small villages of the Mediterranean, the elders still begin each morning with this ritual. They rise before the sun, before words fill the air. They warm the water, not boiling, gentle like the warmth of the heart. A spoon of honey, slow and patient. A squeeze of lemon, alive and fragrant. Then, before drinking, they pause. They look toward the rising light and whisper a simple blessing for renewal. And they drink, not as a habit, but as communion. They say it clears the fog of the mind, strengthens the bones, smooths the breath. But what it truly does is remind them that life, even in its smallest acts, is sacred. There is a reason the ancients guarded this knowledge in simplicity. In a world obsessed with complexity, the greatest truths are often hidden in plain sight. The alchemists of the Middle Ages searched for the elixir of life, a single substance that could restore youth and vitality. Some believed they found it not in gold, but in the golden nectar of bees. Others believed it was hidden in citrus fruits brought from the East, symbols of eternal life. What if both were right, and the secret was never in one element, but in their union? There is something alchemical in this union. Honey, the essence of sunlight captured by the patient labor of bees, and lemon, the condensed purity of the sun's fire. When joined, they create a balance that mirrors the universe itself. Yin and yang, sweetness and sharpness, nourishment and cleansing. One feeds, the other clears. One restores energy, the other removes what blocks it. In the body, this harmony is medicine. In the soul, it is remembrance. Many of the oldest healing traditions, Ayurveda, Taoism, the Essene teachings, speak of the three gates of purification: breath, water, and light. They believe that every element we consume carries an energy signature, a living vibration that interacts with our inner world. Honey was seen as the substance that harmonized energy, while lemon was seen as the spark that ignited it. When combined with warm water, these forces entered the bloodstream like a message of renewal, reminding every cell that it was made of light. It is not coincidence that honey never spoils. Archaeologists have found jars of honey in Egyptian tombs, still edible after thousands of years. It is as if time itself respects honey, as if decay cannot touch something born from pure intention and sunlight. The Egyptians placed it beside their kings in the afterlife, believing it would nourish the soul's journey. They also mixed it with lemon and herbs for purification rituals before prayer. They said it opened the inner gates of Ra, allowing the body's energy to align with the sun. The same ritual, translated through centuries, has reached our kitchens, but stripped of its meaning. The honey and lemon we drink each morning are not merely ingredients, they are fragments of an ancient conversation between the human and the divine. When you hold a spoon of honey, you are holding sunlight that has passed through the bodies of flowers, through wings of bees, through time itself. When you squeeze a lemon, you release the essence of the sun's fire condensed in fruit, a memory of creation. And when these meet in water, the element that remembers, something extraordinary happens. Water becomes a vessel of intention. It carries the message of sweetness and renewal through the rivers of your blood, whispering to every cell, "Awaken." Perhaps that is why so many who begin this ritual notice more than physical change. Their mornings grow calmer, their breath deepens, their thoughts slow. They begin to feel lighter, clearer, more connected. The blend becomes more than a drink. It becomes a mirror. It reflects what is within you. If you drink it with gratitude, it gives you peace. If you drink it with longing, it brings release. If you drink it with faith, it restores strength, not just of body but of spirit. There is a mystery here that defies measurement. We are taught to look for proof in numbers, but healing often begins where logic ends. You cannot measure the peace that enters your chest when you breathe deeply. You cannot weigh the calm that settles in your thoughts after prayer, and you cannot quantify the energy that awakens when you honor your body as sacred. Yet all of these are real as the taste of honey on your tongue, the fragrance of lemon in the air. Maybe, just maybe, the ancients were not primitive but perceptive. They saw what we have forgotten, that every element of creation carries intention. That sweetness heals not only through chemistry, but through vibration. That acidity is not just a cleanser of the body, but a purifier of the soul. When we mix them, we participate in creation itself, balancing opposites, restoring what has been lost. So this is where the journey begins. Not with a miracle claim, not with a scientific formula, but with a question whispered to the heart. What if healing is simpler than we think? What if strength can be restored not through force but through harmony? What if every sip of honey and lemon water is a silent prayer, teaching your body how to remember light? You will not need to believe. You will only need to experience. Warm water, honey, lemon, gratitude. Sip slowly. Feel the warmth travel through you, as if carrying messages from the earth itself. Feel your breath deepen. Feel the quiet joy that rises, unhurried like dawn. Something awakens inside, something ancient, something that knows you were never meant to live in exhaustion, fear, or disconnection. This blend, this simple, forgotten alchemy, is not about flavor. It is about remembering. It is the meeting of earth and sun, of sweetness and fire, of nourishment and renewal. It is life distilled into a ritual that takes less than a minute, and yet holds within it the wisdom of civilizations. It is the moment when you realize that the answers you seek were never hidden. They were waiting on your table all along. And as you finish the last drop, the body whispers back to the soul softly, "I remember." There are moments when the veil between the visible and the invisible begins to thin. It happens not in temples or laboratories, but in the stillness of simple acts, the stirring of honey in warm water, the quiet squeeze of a lemon, the way the steam rises and catches the morning light. It is in that stillness that something ancient begins to whisper again. We call it chemistry, but the elders called it divine alignment. They said that within every drop of honey and every breath of citrus lives a code, a sacred formula that mirrors the harmony of creation itself. For centuries, sages and healers across lands separated by oceans spoke of this blend as if describing a living being. In the East, it was known as the elixir of the morning sun. In the Mediterranean, it was called the nectar of clarity. In the deserts of the Middle East, travelers would carry jars of honey and dried lemons across long journeys, saying it sustained both body and spirit. They believed it carried the essence of balance, sweetness for the heart, acid for the cleansing of the soul. In ancient Hebrew scrolls, there is a word, dvash, meaning honey, that appears not only in recipes but in sacred poetry. Honey was more than nourishment, it was symbol. The land flowing with milk and honey was not a metaphor of wealth, but of divine harmony, of abundance that nourishes body and faith alike. Honey represented the mercy of God, soft, healing, constant. Lemon, though not native to those lands, was later embraced by mystics of the Essene sect, who saw it as the fruit of purification, the sour truth that brings clarity after illusion. Together, they formed a union of opposites that reflected the eternal dance between love and wisdom. In old Arabic texts of Unani medicine, the combination was prescribed to restore the humours of life, meaning to balance the inner elements that govern health, fire, water, air, and earth. The honey was said to pacify the heart and moisten the spirit, the lemon to clear the bile and sharpen the mind. They believed that disease began when the elements within us forgot how to communicate, when sweetness no longer tempered the sourness of life. The cure was not found in suppression, but in harmony. But perhaps the most fascinating revelation lies not in texts or traditions, but in what happens inside the human body the moment this golden liquid is swallowed. Honey carries traces of over 200 compounds, enzymes, minerals, living bacteria, microelements from flowers and soil. Lemon carries citric acid, potassium, vitamin C, but more importantly, a living vibration, a resonance that speaks directly to the water in our cells. Modern science is just beginning to understand what the mystics already felt, that our bodies are not mechanical, but musical. Every cell vibrates, every organ sings its own tone. And when those tones fall out of harmony, we feel fatigue, pain, confusion. Honey and lemon, when joined in warmth, act like tuning forks, restoring the forgotten melody of the body. Japanese researchers have observed how lemon's frequency, around 90 megahertz, interacts with the human biofield, the electromagnetic energy that surrounds every living being. Honey remarkably vibrates near 320 megahertz, the same frequency measured in blooming flowers and healthy human hearts. When combined, they form a resonance pattern close to that of deep meditation. It is as if nature encoded in them a bridge between matter and spirit, one that can be activated through simple awareness. The ancient Egyptians did not need instruments to know this. In their temples, honey was used to anoint the skin before prayer. The priests believed it opened the pores of the soul, making them receptive to divine light. Lemon oil was burned beside the altars, its scent cleansing the air of dense energy. When mixed with water, the blend was poured over statues of deities during purification rituals, symbolizing the renewal of divine life. The hieroglyph for honey was drawn as a pair of wings over a sun disk, the union of work and light, of earthly effort and heavenly grace. In India, the Ayurvedic texts go even deeper. They describe honey and lemon not as ingredients, but as prana carriers, substances that move life energy through the body's channels. Honey, they say, binds the scattered. Lemon releases the stagnant. When taken together at dawn, they awaken Agni, the inner fire of digestion and awareness. This is not just the physical fire that transforms food, but the spiritual fire that transforms thought into clarity. That is why yogis drank this blend before meditation. They believed it purified the subtle body, cleared the mental fog, and allowed the soul to rise. Yet there is something universal about this knowledge. In the Gospels, honey appears as a symbol of divine sustenance. John the Baptist lived on locusts and wild honey, representing a life nourished by nature and simplicity. Early Christian monks in their stone monasteries grew lemon trees in cloisters not for food, but for fragrance. They said the scent itself was prayer. When a monk fell ill or weary from fasting, he was given honey water with a touch of lemon to remind the body of light. It was more than remedy. It was ritual. Science would later reduce it to chemistry, stripping it of its poetry. Yet what the monks practiced was far beyond mere nutrition. They understood that every act of healing must first awaken remembrance, that the body cannot heal without the cooperation of the spirit. That honey and lemon, when joined, carry both nourishment and purification, the two pillars of regeneration. Let us go deeper. Imagine a drop of honey under the microscope, not just its golden color, but its life. Within it are thousands of enzymes, each one a tiny gatekeeper of transformation. They do not act randomly. They act in harmony, responding to heat, vibration, even human touch. Scientists have noticed that honey exposed to calm music or positive words tends to preserve its enzymes longer. Lemon, too, responds to sound, its molecular structure shifting subtly under vibration, as if listening. Now imagine them meeting in water, the universal conductor of frequency. The moment they mix, a silent dialogue begins, a transfer of energy that transcends chemistry. The honey softens the lemon's sharpness. The lemon amplifies the honey's vitality. The result is balance, not just in taste, but in vibration. This is the essence of alchemy, the transformation of opposites into unity. The medieval alchemists were not simply seeking gold, they were seeking the golden state of being, where all contradictions dissolve. They spoke of the aqua vitae, the water of life, created through the union of fire and sweetness. To them, honey symbolized the philosopher's stone in liquid form, incorruptible, radiant, alive. Lemon represented the purifying acid that burns away illusion, leaving only truth. The union of both was said to awaken the prima materia within the human body, the original substance of creation, capable of renewal. What we call honey and lemon water today is, in essence, the same ritual, simplified by time. But to those who know, each glass holds a secret, an echo of the great alchemical work. The process is simple yet sacred: warmth to awaken, sweetness to heal, acidity to cleanse, breath to bless. When done consciously, the body receives more than nourishment. It receives memory. The cells, like tuning instruments, begin to vibrate in harmony again. And harmony is the true name of health. In modern laboratories, researchers have found that honey contains traces of hydrogen peroxide, a natural antibacterial agent that purifies the bloodstream. Lemon stimulates bile production, improving detoxification. Together they balance blood sugar, reduce inflammation, and awaken metabolism. Yet even these measurable effects are but shadows of a deeper truth, that the body responds not only to substances, but to the consciousness with which they are received. The ancients always drank this blend at dawn for a reason. They said that morning light carries a frequency of renewal, that it interacts with the fluids of the body, programming them for harmony. To drink honey and lemon in this moment was to align with creation itself, to invite the first light of the day into your inner world. There is also a sacred geometry hidden in this act. The spiral of honey as it melts into water resembles the golden ratio, the pattern of life repeated in shells, galaxies, and the chambers of the heart. Lemon slices, when seen in cross-section, form perfect star shapes, echoing the geometry of flowers and suns. Each time you stir, you recreate this pattern, unconsciously aligning yourself with the architecture of life. The ancients did not speak of mathematics, they spoke of resonance, but their rituals carried this geometry instinctively. The circular motion of the spoon, the clockwise stirring, the pause before drinking, all mirrored cosmic rhythms. Perhaps this is why those who rediscover the ritual describe it as awakening something beyond health. They speak of renewed focus, calm emotions, softer skin, deeper sleep. But underneath it all lies a subtler shift, a feeling of returning home, of reconnecting with a natural rhythm that had long been forgotten. It is as if the body, relieved of the burden of imbalance, begins to hum again. Even the bees themselves are part of this revelation, for they are not merely insects, but keepers of a divine blueprint. The hexagonal honeycomb, perfect, precise, eternal, is one of nature's most mysterious symbols. It appears in sacred art across civilizations, from the temples of Luxor to the cathedrals of Chartres. The ancients saw it as a reflection of cosmic order, the structure through which divine energy flows into the material world. And in every drop of honey, this geometry lives. When you consume it, you are consuming pattern, balance, creation itself. Lemon, too, carries symbolism that transcends fruit. Its fragrance was believed to cleanse not only the air, but the mind. In medieval mysticism, lemons were hung in rooms to ward off darkness, both physical and emotional. In Islamic gardens, lemon trees were planted beside fountains, their scent mingling with water, symbolizing paradise. The fruit itself, bright and golden, represented the light of the soul made manifest. To hold a lemon was to hold sunlight in solid form. So when honey and lemon meet, you are witnessing more than a recipe. You are witnessing reunion. The reunion of the sun and the earth, the masculine fire of light, and the feminine sweetness of creation. In that union lies the secret the ancients guarded. All healing begins in balance, and balance begins in love. It is said that when a person drinks this blend with full presence, with gratitude and intention, the heart's electromagnetic field expands. The body relaxes into coherence, the immune system awakens, the mind quiets. Science can measure some of it, but the deeper transformation happens where instruments cannot reach, in the dialogue between soul and body. The body listens, the soul speaks, and honey and lemon become their language. That is why no two people experience the same cup the same way. For one, it brings calm. For another, clarity. For another, still tears, a release long overdue. Healing is not an event, but a remembering. And this ritual simply opens the door. You may not even notice it at first. Perhaps your mornings become gentler, your breath steadier, your thoughts kinder. But beneath these small changes lies something vast, the reawakening of your connection to life itself. This is the unveiling, the moment you realize that the divine is not separate from the physical, that spirit lives in every molecule, every drop, every sip. You do not need temples to find holiness. It is in your kitchen. It is in the warmth of your cup. It is in the fragrance of lemon rising through the air like prayer. It is in the quiet labor of bees that remind us every act of creation, no matter how small, is sacred. And so, as you stand in the morning light, holding this ancient elixir, you are not just drinking. You are participating, you are remembering. You are touching a lineage that stretches back through time, through monks and mystics, healers and mothers, sun and soil, all whispering the same truth. Within simplicity lies the eternal. And as the last drop disappears, you feel it, the veil lifting, the awareness expanding, the body and soul remembering their unity. You are no longer just a person seeking healing. You are part of the great rhythm that heals everything. There comes a point when knowledge turns into experience, when the idea of healing becomes the feeling of it. When what once was an act of curiosity, the mixing of honey and lemon, begins to reveal itself as transformation. You do not notice it at first. It starts subtly, like a light growing beneath the surface. Your mornings begin to change. The first sip no longer tastes simply sweet or sour. It tastes alive. You feel it slide through you, warm, patient, radiant, as if the body itself sighs in relief, as if every cell recognizes the return of something it had long been waiting for. This is the stage the ancients called the awakening of the inner waters. They believed that within each person flows not just blood, but a river of energy, a stream of consciousness that connects every organ, every cell, every thought. Illness, they said, begins when that river becomes blocked by fear, by grief, by unexpressed life. The ritual of honey and lemon was never just to nourish, it was to move that inner river again, to wash away what time and sorrow had sedimented. The monks of Mount Athos used to describe it as the soft fire. They said that after a few days of drinking the sacred blend, a gentle warmth would appear in the belly, not the fire of fever or hunger, but of life returning. It would rise slowly, spreading to the chest, to the heart, until one could feel light inside the body. The monks believed this warmth was the sign of divine presence, the body remembering its divine architecture. When the honey melts the shadows, one monk wrote, the soul begins to see itself again. Modern medicine might call it circulation, metabolism, detoxification. Yet to the ancient heart, these words are too cold to describe the miracle of feeling oneself come alive again. Because what truly transforms is not just the chemistry, it is the consciousness. You begin to see the connection between what you think and what you feel, between what you drink and what you believe. You begin to sense that the body is not a machine, but a temple, and every act of care is an offering. One morning, as you lift the cup to your lips, you notice the light in the water. It dances. You realize that what you hold is more than a drink. It is a mirror. You see your reflection in it, not the reflection of your face, but of your inner state. You drink, and for a brief moment you are drinking yourself, your intention, your awareness, your presence. The transformation begins in that recognition. You are not separate from what you consume. Every sip is a conversation between your soul and creation. In the texts of ancient Persia, healers spoke of Ruh al-Shifa, the spirit of healing. They said it lived in certain combinations of natural elements, waiting to be awakened by gratitude. Honey and lemon, they believed, were among the rare pairings capable of invoking this spirit. It does not heal by substance, they wrote, but by remembrance. The remembrance of harmony, the remembrance of peace. The spirit does not enter you, it awakens within you. It is in this awakening that emotions begin to surface. The body is not separate from emotion. It stores every memory, every unspoken word, every hidden tear. The lemon's cleansing power stirs these waters. The honey's sweetness comforts them. And slowly, layer by layer, what was trapped begins to move. People often describe crying for no reason after adopting the ritual. They call it strange. But it is not strange. It is release. It is the river moving again. In the forgotten temples of Egypt, initiates were asked to fast for 3 days, then break the fast with honey and lemon mixed in sacred water. The priests told them that this would awaken Ka, the energy of divine memory. They believed that when the body is purified through this elixir, it becomes transparent to light. Emotions once heavy become light as air. Grief turns to understanding. Fear turns to clarity. It is the same today. The bitterness of lemon meets the softness of honey, and something shifts, not violently, but gently, as if a window opens inside you. You begin to see that healing is not the removal of pain, but the transformation of it. The acid of the lemon does not fight the sweetness of honey, they coexist. The sharpness of truth meets the gentleness of compassion. That is what happens inside you too. The parts of you that were divided, logic and emotion, strength and vulnerability, begin to meet. The blend becomes symbolic of inner reconciliation. You are no longer fighting against yourself. You are learning to be whole. As days turn to weeks, you notice how your body listens differently. You breathe more consciously. You eat more slowly. The fatigue that once felt permanent begins to fade, replaced not by stimulation but by steadiness, a quiet kind of power that does not need to shout. Your mornings become sacred. Your nights become peaceful. You start to sense that the body itself has intelligence, a voice that was always there, waiting for silence to be heard. The ancients knew this voice. They called it the inner physician. They said that honey speaks to it, reminding it of the sweetness of life, while lemon clears its vision, helping it see truth. When the two speak together, the inner physician awakens and begins its work. It does not rush, it does not force. It restores, slowly, lovingly, patiently. There are stories from the old monastic texts of men and women who, after long illness, began the honey and lemon ritual as an act of devotion. Not seeking cure but communion, they were told to pray as they stirred. May my body remember light. Weeks later they spoke of dreams, vivid, golden, full of symbols. They said they saw gardens, rivers, faces of loved ones. Some said they felt warmth in the spine, others heard music upon waking. Whether these were visions or metaphors did not matter. What mattered was that they felt alive again. Transformation, the sages taught, is not something that happens to you. It happens through you. The honey and lemon are only mirrors, reflecting your willingness to be healed. When you say yes to the ritual, you are saying yes to life, to softness, to truth, to balance. There is an ancient Sanskrit phrase, Madhu Amalaki, meaning sweet-sour union. It appears in the Ayurvedic texts as a sacred formula for rejuvenation. The teachers described it as the marriage of opposites, the fusion of nectar and purity, of indulgence and discipline. They taught that when these forces unite in the body, they awaken ohas, the subtle essence of vitality, the radiant glow that shines from within. Oyas is not youth, it is the visible presence of harmony. It is why those who practice the ritual seem to age differently, not in resistance to time, but in peace with it. This is the heart of transformation, acceptance. Honey accepts the sting of lemon. Lemon accepts the embrace of honey. Together they create balance. Likewise, healing begins when we accept all parts of ourselves, the sweet and the bitter, the light and the shadow. You begin to realize that you are not broken, you are becoming balanced. There is also a deeper transformation occurring beneath awareness, in the microbiome, the unseen world of life within you. Honey feeds the beneficial bacteria of the gut, the tiny beings that shape mood, immunity, and even thought. Lemon clears away what no longer serves. Together, they recreate harmony within your inner ecosystem. It is a physical reflection of the spiritual truth. As within, so without. When the inner world is in balance, the outer world begins to change. Those who remain faithful to this simple ritual often describe unexpected changes. They begin to dream again, their skin glows, their energy steadies. But beyond these visible signs lies something more profound, a sense of connection. They find themselves more patient, more compassionate, more forgiving. They begin to speak softer, move slower, listen deeper. It is as if the rhythm of nature has entered their body again, and in that rhythm, transformation reveals its true nature. It is not about adding anything new, but remembering what was always there. You are not becoming something else. You are remembering yourself. The honey whispers of gentleness, reminding you that life does not need to be hard. The lemon whispers of truth, reminding you that clarity is kindness. Together they awaken the strength that hides behind softness, the courage to live in balance, the wisdom to live in peace. So now, each morning is no longer a routine, it is a ceremony. You approach the cup like an altar. You stir, and you remember that every movement has meaning. You lift it to your lips, and you feel gratitude, not for the drink itself, but for the chance to be alive enough to taste, to feel, to heal. And as you drink, the transformation deepens, not in the body alone, but in the way you see the world. You begin to notice light differently. You begin to hear silence differently. Even your thoughts seem slower, more spacious. The world around you has not changed, but you have. This is the secret the ancients guarded, not the ingredients, but the awareness. That healing is not a battle to win, but a rhythm to remember. That the body, like honey, knows how to preserve itself, and the spirit, like lemon, knows how to cleanse. And when they meet within you, you become a bridge between heaven and earth, the living blend of sweetness and fire, human and divine. And in that moment of stillness after the last sip, you feel it, not as an idea, not as hope, but as presence. The river flows again, the warmth rises, the light inside you glows quietly, and you understand, without words, that you are not healing, you are returning home. There comes a moment when knowledge becomes experience, when what you once believed begins to be felt. It doesn't happen with thunder or light. It begins in silence, in the still space between one breath and the next, when you realize the ritual is no longer outside you, it's inside you. You wake early one morning and feel drawn to the cup before you even open your eyes. You pour the water, watch the steam rise like prayer. The honey slides from the spoon, golden and slow, dissolving into the warmth as if returning home. The lemon follows, a bright cut of clarity, a spark of sunlight. You stir gently, and in that small act you sense something shifting, something ancient, something you cannot name but can feel. The transformation does not announce itself. It moves quietly as nature does. The first change is in your body. The fatigue that once clung to you begins to lift, replaced not by stimulation, but by steady calm. The warmth spreads from your chest outward, soft but alive, as though the body remembers its own rhythm again. Every sip becomes a conversation between what you see and what you cannot. The elders called this the moment when sweetness meets fire. They said that honey feeds what has been starved, while lemon frees what has been trapped. Together, they awaken the river within, the current that carries life through every cell. And as that current begins to flow, the body starts to release what it no longer needs: heaviness, fear, old emotion. You might notice tears for no reason or laughter without cause. Do not resist it. It is the soul breathing again. The alchemists taught that transformation begins with purification, but ends with love. The lemon purifies. The honey teaches love. One burns away illusion. The other reminds you what it means to feel whole. Within that meeting, you rediscover harmony, the union of clarity and compassion. It is not a battle between opposites, but a dance. Every act of transformation carries memory. The body is not only flesh, it is story. Every cell remembers joy and sorrow alike. When you drink this blend with awareness, the honey whispers to those memories, softens them. The lemon clears them like sunlight through water. What was once pain becomes understanding. What was once heaviness becomes peace. And with that, something deeper begins to unfold. You start to see the world differently. Colors seem warmer. The morning air feels sacred. You notice the small pulse in your wrist, the rhythm of life beating in harmony with the earth. This is what the monks meant when they said that the divine hides in the ordinary. Day by day, your energy changes. You no longer move from exhaustion or fear, but from quiet strength. You begin to trust your body again, not as an enemy to control, but as a companion to listen to. You begin to trust your emotions again, not as storms to survive, but as tides that teach. You are no longer separate from nature. You are part of it. The same sunlight that made the lemon also moves through you. The same earth that held the hives holds your bones. Transformation is not the creation of something new. It is the remembering of what has always been whole. When the honey melts, when the lemon brightens, when the water carries both through your veins, the message is simple and eternal. You were never broken. You were only asleep. And as the warmth settles into your chest, you realize this truth is not metaphor. It is presence. The body hums with light, the mind quiets, and in the silence you hear it, the soft voice within that says, "I am alive. I remember." There is a stillness that follows true transformation. It feels like the moment before sunrise, that sacred pause between darkness and light, when the air is full of possibility. This is where awakening begins. It does not come as a revelation written in thunder, nor as a voice from the heavens. It comes as a whisper from within, the gentle awareness that the sacred you've been searching for has always lived quietly inside you. For days, perhaps weeks, you have practiced the ritual: water, honey, lemon, gratitude. What began as curiosity has become communion. Each morning feels softer, each breath deeper, and one day, as you stir the golden swirl in your cup, you notice something almost imperceptible. You are no longer performing the ritual. The ritual is performing you. Your hands move without thought. Your heart breathes with the rhythm of creation, and in that moment, something eternal opens. The ancients called this the marriage of light and body. They said that when a human being remembers harmony, through sound, through prayer, through the blending of sacred elements, the divine energy once scattered begins to return home. The body becomes luminous from within. The eyes regain their radiance. The voice carries calm. You begin to walk differently, not because you try to, but because grace begins to inhabit you. Science will tell you that the body is 60% water. Mystics will tell you that consciousness floats within it like sunlight in the sea. When you drink the sacred blend with intention, you are not merely hydrating, you are harmonizing. The water receives the vibration of honey, the frequency of creation, cooperation, and unity. It receives the vibration of lemon, the frequency of cleansing, truth, and renewal. Together they create a field, a resonance that reaches every cell, reminding them, you belong to light. You begin to feel this belonging in ways that defy explanation. The tightness in your chest softens. The restlessness in your thoughts quiets. The world feels gentler, as though it too has exhaled. You sense that everything is connected, that the same sweetness that flows through honey flows through the kindness of a smile, that the same brightness that lives in lemon lives in every moment of clarity, every act of courage. You are not apart from creation, you are its living continuation. The teachers of old described this moment as the second birth. The first birth is into flesh, the second is into awareness. It is the realization that the divine is not something you must reach for. It is the very fabric of your being. The body, once heavy, becomes a vessel of light. The mind, once restless, becomes a mirror of stillness. The soul, once seeking, becomes the source itself. Honey and lemon become symbols of this union. The honey reminds you that love is the nature of the universe, constant, patient, luminous. The lemon reminds you that truth is its companion, clear, uncompromising, eternal. Together they become a living parable. The divine is both sweetness and fire, compassion and clarity, mercy and discernment. To live fully is to embody both. The alchemists called this stage coagulatio, the integration of spirit into matter. They said that when light and body merge, a new substance is formed, incorruptible and radiant. The human becomes a bridge between heaven and earth, the vessel through which creation continues to express itself. And perhaps that is why, after weeks of this ritual, people report not only health, but peace. The drink was never meant to fix the body. It was meant to remind the soul that it is already whole. You begin to see how everything around you is alive with meaning. The sunlight that filters through the window feels different, as if it recognizes you. The sound of birds in the distance feels like a language you once spoke but forgot. Even the act of breathing feels sacred, an exchange of energies between you and the infinite. The veil that once separated the ordinary from the divine grows thinner each day, until you can no longer tell where one ends and the other begins. In that awareness, gratitude arises naturally. You no longer have to force it or recite it. Gratitude becomes your breath. You look at your cup and realize it is the world in miniature. Water from the earth, honey from the bees, lemon from the sun. You see that every sip is a participation in the eternal cycle, the giving and receiving of life. You understand that healing was never about escape from the human, but the full embrace of it. In this state of awakening, time begins to behave differently. The rush of minutes loses its grip. You feel present in a way that makes each second eternal. You walk outside, and the air itself feels alive, as though reality is breathing with you. You begin to notice patterns, the way light moves through trees, the way silence hums after a deep breath, the way everything seems to be aware of you, just as you are aware of it. And then it happens. The quiet realization that love is not something you feel toward others, but something that flows through you when you are aligned. The honey taught you that. Love is the sweetness that holds everything together. The lemon taught you that truth is love's highest form, that only through clarity can love remain pure. Together they have shown you that heaven is not a place, but a state of coherence between body and soul. You begin to remember stories you once dismissed as myth, stories of saints whose touch healed, of sages who lived for centuries, of waters that carried memory. You begin to see that they were never about miracles, but about alignment. When a person remembers who they truly are, light embodied, the boundaries of what is possible dissolve. You may not walk on water, but you will feel the water within you vibrating with purpose. This is why the monks called honey and lemon the teacher blend. Because, over time, it teaches the simplest truth of all, that you are not separate from creation. You are not a fragment of light trying to find the source. You are the source experiencing itself through form. Every heartbeat, every breath, every act of care is a hymn of remembrance. You no longer ask, does this heal? You begin to ask, what am I remembering? The fatigue that once weighed you down begins to fade, not because it vanished, but because its purpose is fulfilled. It was only ever a messenger, asking you to return to balance. The anxiety that once buzzed through your mind becomes a hum of energy, now flowing freely, redirected toward life, creativity, love. When you next prepare the blend, you do it slowly. You no longer rush to drink it. You watch the honey spiral in the water, glowing like liquid sun. You squeeze the lemon, releasing the fragrance of life itself. You whisper a single word, not a request, not a plea, but thank you. And in that moment, the universe whispers back the same. That is the divine realization, that every act of awareness, no matter how small, is answered. That you are not a seeker, but a participant. That healing is not something given to you, but something revealed through you. And so, in the stillness after the last sip, you sit quietly. The warmth fills you, not as sensation, but as knowing. You feel the breath of the earth beneath your feet, the pulse of the cosmos within your veins. You understand that honey and lemon were never the destination. They were the doorway. Through them, you have entered remembrance. Through them, you have rediscovered what the ancients called the light that never forgets. And now you carry that light wherever you go. There comes a day when even the most sacred ritual dissolves into silence, not because it has lost its meaning, but because its meaning has been fulfilled. You no longer wake with the same seeking as before. You no longer look to the cup as something outside you. You rise, and the very air feels like prayer. The water, the honey, the lemon, they live in you now. The ritual is no longer an act of doing, but of being. This is the final stage, the return to stillness. The realization that what began as a search for healing has become a remembrance of wholeness. You do not need to prove it, explain it, or even think about it. You simply feel it, the quiet harmony between breath and heartbeat, between the sweetness of being alive and the sharp clarity of truth. You stand at your table, as you have so many mornings before. The glass is there. The honey gleams. The lemon rests, fragrant and humble. You reach for them, and your movements feel slower, more reverent, more grateful. You stir, but not to mix ingredients. You stir to remember. The golden spiral that forms in the water feels like a mirror of your own spirit, calm, luminous, eternal. You taste the first sip, and the warmth spreads through you as it always has. Yet this time it carries a new depth. There is no longer distance between you and the light. There is only presence. The body has changed, yes, stronger, lighter, steadier. But something deeper has shifted. You have begun to live as one who remembers the sacred in everything. The scent of lemon reminds you of the courage of clarity. The taste of honey reminds you of the gentleness of love. You begin to see those qualities reflected everywhere, in the morning sun on your window, in the patience of a tree, in the smile of a stranger. The external world, once separate, now feels like an extension of your own being. The ancients called this state at-one-ment, the union of all parts. They said that when the spirit awakens, the world ceases to be an object to analyze and becomes a presence to experience. Every sound, every taste, every sensation becomes a teacher. The hum of life, once drowned by noise, becomes audible again. You feel the subtle pulse of existence beneath everything, the hidden rhythm of creation, steady and eternal. In this stillness, gratitude arises naturally, not the kind of gratitude that must be spoken, but the kind that breathes itself into every gesture. Gratitude for the body that carries you, for the breath that moves through you, for the light that fills each moment. Gratitude for the bees, tirelessly weaving gold from flowers. Gratitude for the tree that bore the lemon, for the soil that cradled its roots, for the rain that fell unseen in the night. Gratitude for the invisible intelligence that guided all of this, the same intelligence that guides the healing within you. You begin to understand that life itself is the ritual. The sacred was never limited to morning cups or quiet rooms. It is in every act of awareness. When you walk, the ground receives your gratitude. When you breathe, the air blesses you in return. When you speak with kindness, the world echoes it back. The cycle is complete, giving and receiving, sweetness and truth, human and divine. And so you live differently now. You move slower, but not out of caution, out of reverence. You listen more deeply, not because you are seeking answers, but because you have learned that silence speaks more clearly than words. You forgive more easily, because you understand that everything in nature bends toward harmony. You love more freely, because love is no longer something to hold or lose. It is the atmosphere you live in. There are moments when you think back to how it began, to the first day you stirred the cup, uncertain but curious. You remember the doubts, the questions, the quiet hope that something simple could change something profound. And you smile because it did, but not in the way you expected. The honey and lemon did not give you something new. They revealed what had always been waiting beneath the noise, the sweetness of existence itself. Now you see it clearly. Healing was never about returning to who you were, but about awakening to who you truly are. The fatigue that once burdened you was not an enemy. It was a message asking you to listen. The discomfort was not punishment. It was invitation. Every imbalance was a whisper from your own soul saying, "Come home." And you did. In ancient mystic traditions, this moment was called the return to the garden. They said that when a person awakens fully, the world becomes Eden again, not because the world changed, but because their perception did. You begin to see that the divine never left the earth. It was only hidden by the veil of forgetting. The veil lifts, and there it is, the sacred in everything, in the laughter of children, in the pattern of rain, in the golden liquid spiraling in a cup. You no longer ask what is holy. You see that everything is. You no longer ask what heals. You understand that life itself heals, the body, the mind, the spirit. They are not separate instruments, but one symphony. And you, the listener, have become the music itself. There is a peace that follows this understanding. It is not the peace of absence, but of presence. You no longer need to escape or seek. You simply are. The honey has taught you softness. The lemon has taught you strength. Together they have taught you balance. The cup is empty now, but you carry the blend within you. It moves through your words, your actions, your silence. And so, as the day unfolds, you move through the world as a quiet blessing. You may still prepare the drink each morning, but not out of need. You do it as an offering, a thank you to the forces that sustain you, a reminder that even the smallest act can be sacred when done with love. You stir the honey, squeeze the lemon, lift the cup, and before the first sip, you pause. You listen to the silence, to the heartbeat of creation pulsing softly through you. You whisper, "Thank you." And in that moment, You realize there is no difference between you and the whisper, between you and the warmth, between you and the light. There never was. The healing was not something you found. It was something you remembered. The water stills. The golden glow fades. The morning light fills the room. You close your eyes and everything is whole.